Welcome to the exciting third installment of this series. Let's dive right in. The mysterious wall stood before them, glowing faintly under the dim light. Protagonist reached out, feeling the strange energy emanating from it. "Junior, it seems there is something real beyond this wall," Jinwei said, her tone cautious. He examined the structure closely. It is likely a mechanical device from 300 years ago, operated by applying force to open and close these stone walls. "But there's only one chance," he warned. "If too much or too little force is applied, everything will collapse." Jinwei's gaze turned sharp. If you can't properly execute the demon-slaying sword technique, the wall might not open at all. Protagonist clenched his fist. Maybe so. Protagonist stared at the wall, his mind racing. "But don't worry," he said with confidence. "There will be a way." He took a deep breath. "Well, at least, I'm not completely ignorant of the secrets of the demon-slaying sword technique." As he prepared himself, his thoughts drifted to an old doctrine, the non-aggression pact. An absolute rule ensuring peace between the imperial family and martial artists. But this rule wasn't upheld by loyalty alone. Would the fools in the imperial palace really just sit back and watch as martial artists grew stronger by the day? No. The imperial palace always kept them in check. They acquired the secret techniques of famous sects and developed methods to counter them. Not all possessed these secrets, but the demon-slaying sword technique of the Gongdong sect was famous enough to be stored in the imperial palace's armory. That's how he knew. The marks on this wall were left by the celestial being's demon-slaying sword technique. "Okay, whatever lies beyond this wall," a smirk formed on his face. "It must be the real inheritance left by the celestial sword lord." Suddenly, Jinwei called him "Junior," but without listening to her, he moved. Every martial art has a stepping technique. Everything in this place is a clue from the celestial sword lord. His steps were sharp, deliberate, following a path unseen to others. He was performing the stepping technique. "Junior, what are you doing right now?" Jinwei spoke as her eyes widened. "Wait, this is a stepping technique?" She was surprised. "The sword marks on the ground, they're guiding us." She realized it now. Junior is following the marks, heading to where the stepping technique first began. With precise movements, his foot landed. Here. Before him, the path opened further, deeper into the celestial sword lord's legacy. With a swift motion, his sword cut through the air. The cave echoed with the sharp sound of steel meeting the unknown. His companion stepped forward, eyes filled with realization. "Senior brother," Protagonist said. She looked at him intently. "Can you decipher it?" Protagonist asked Jinwei. Before them, the ancient wall stood, etched with markings of profound technique. This was no ordinary inscription. It took 2 days just to interpret the demon-slaying sword technique carved by the celestial sword lord. The weight of its secrets pressed upon them. Yu Jinwei quickly realized the meaning behind the lightning-shaped marks engraved on the wall. They weren't random etchings. They pointed to where the demon-slaying sword technique truly began, on the opposite side, and they put their heads together to restore the technique. Through reverse calculation and careful study, they reconstructed the correct incantation. It took time, too much time. As they practiced, frustration mounted. "Isn't it better to swing it like this?" Yu Jinwei asked. "If you do, the angle will be off, and it won't work." Protagonist replied. Each mistake meant another correction. Each correction made his jaw clench in irritation. Teaching Yu Jinwei how to properly swing a sword wasn't how he imagined his first close interaction in this life. "How much of my first experiences has Yu Jinwei stolen from me?" Days of hardship passed. When hunger gnawed at them, they relied on what little chi pills they had left. When thirst overwhelmed them, they sipped from the valley stream, enduring the bitter cold. Through sheer determination, they finally succeeded in reverse calculating the demon-slaying sword technique. Victory was so overwhelming that for a brief moment, he almost hugged Yu Jinwei, forgetting he was a man. But there was no time to dwell on embarrassment. This madness ends today. With firm resolve, they stood on the path laid before them, the very sword marks guiding their way. Now all that's left is using the demon-slaying sword technique on the stone wall engraved with lightning, right? Yu Jinwei asked. "Yes, this is something only you can do, senior brother," Protagonist replied. The weight of responsibility settled upon Jinwei. Yu Jinhui hesitated before admitting, "To be honest, I'm not confident since I can't use the Celestial Force Art." Their master had always warned them, without the Celestial Force Art, the demon-slaying sword technique couldn't be properly executed. "Well, this won't work, probably," Protagonist answered. His casual remark made his senior freeze. "What?" Protagonist remained calm, gazing at the ancient sword marks on the stone wall. Of course, the engravings seemed like clues left behind by someone who had mastered the technique to its peak. He sighed. It probably wasn't meant for us. But then he turned back to his senior brother with conviction. If you weren't born with the celestial martial body, senior brother, restoring the demon-slaying sword technique would have been impossible. Even so, but is there really no sure way to open the stone wall? The path ahead remained uncertain. "Don't worry, senior brother," Protagonist reassured her. "It's not like there's only one way to open the wall." His eyes glinted with certainty. He had once been called the Peerless Mechanism Grandmaster, a genius when it came to manipulating mechanical devices. "I'm second to none in the world." As his fingers traced the ancient mechanisms, an idea sparked in his mind. Assuming the technology is old, the mechanism itself can't possibly still be perfect after so many years, right? Then a realization. By using this, I can open the door without fully mastering the demon-slaying sword technique. The ancient locks began to shift. The path ahead was finally within reach. With a determined expression, Protagonist turned to Jinhui. "It's done, senior brother." The mechanisms had been unlocked. The way forward was clear. The senior brother nodded, gripping his sword. "Let's go." As they stepped forward, a silent resolve settled between them. Each had their strengths. Each had their role. "What Yu Jinhui can't do, I will." The young warrior's eyes burned with determination. "What I can't do, Yu Jinhui will do." Side by side, they moved forward, ready to face whatever lay ahead. As they moved forward, Protagonist smirked confidently. "Don't worry, Yu Jinhui. You are different from the past versions of yourself now." As he was watching, she jumped forward toward the wall. A glowing light shot skyward, illuminating the cavern in an overwhelming brilliance. Jinhui landed gracefully, standing tall amidst the cascading energy. The heavy stone groaned as it slid open, revealing a hidden path bathed in an eerie glow. Yu Jinhui's eyes widened in amazement. "Junior, the stone wall has opened." She turned to Protagonist. "What on earth did you do?" Before Protagonist could process it, Jinhui grabbed him enthusiastically, shaking him with joy. "Junior, you're amazing." As the dust settled, Yu Jinhui's eyes sparkled with realization. The fact that the wall opened proves that the restored demon-slaying sword technique was correct. She turned to her junior, gratitude filling her expression. "Thank you so much, Junior." But Protagonist remained cautious. It's too early to celebrate. The weight of their discovery hadn't yet sunk in. We still need to see what the Celestial Sword Lord has left behind. With that, the two stepped forward, their hearts steady, ready to face whatever lay beyond the opened gate. As they took their first step forward, a sudden darkness engulfed them. A faint thudding echoed in the void, then silence. In very next moment, his eyes opened. The cave, the secret techniques, his junior, gone. Instead, he stood in a wooden room. When did I fall asleep? His gaze darted upward. This ceiling, it looks familiar. Before he could make sense of his surroundings, voices murmured nearby. Two men watched him with curiosity. Yes, judging from the fact that he only speaks Joseon, he seems like a lost child from Haedong. Their eyes gleamed with greed. "How much will we get if we sell him to the palace?" The old man chuckled, his expression dripping with amusement. "Oh, you've come to your senses, child." He scared and remembered them. The bastard who sold him to Palace and Palace broker was standing in front of him. He had suspected something was off, but now it was clear. "I see." His gaze hardened. "So that's it." He focused, feeling the weight of realization settle in. "As soon as I opened the door, the hallucination struck." "To show me such a vivid hallucination?" A dark aura crackled around him, his eyes gleaming with cold fury. "How far do you intend to push me, Celestial Sword Lord?" Protagonist stood frozen, pale and breathless from the recent clash. In a hall, an older man, Wang Sum, watched him with a smug smile. Chuckling, he mocked the warrior's fate, suggesting life within the palace will be better than dying in a foreign land. With a sly grin, he hinted at a future, not as a warrior, but as a eunuch wielding courtly influence. His laughter echoed as he urged the warrior to remember the grace of those who put him here. The warrior flinched, fists clenched, yet he couldn't deny the bitter truth in the words. A flood of memories surged through the young warrior's mind, recollections of a past life where he had once held immense power, second only to the emperor himself. But what was the point of all that power if it came at such a cost? The cruel reality of his past existence struck him like a blade. He had been stripped of something essential, something irreplaceable. Rage burned in his eyes as he clenched his fists. The indignity of it all twisted his expression into one of sheer fury. His body trembled before erupting with a surge of energy. With a scream of resentment, he lashed out, sending shockwaves through those around him. Beneath his rage, he knew. His body was no longer the same. Time had rewound, stripping him of internal energy, yet his mind remained sharp. Though weaker, his knowledge and instincts endured. As his captors watched in shock, he shattered his restraints with uncanny precision. The stunned guards couldn't fathom how he smirked. His foundation remained intact. His power was lost, but his mastery, experience, and will endured. And with that, he would rise again. With a swift motion, he unleashed his first technique, Frozen Heart. Ice spread across the ground, locking the surroundings in a chilling stillness. But something was wrong. He clenched his fists, refusing to be swayed. This was nothing more than a trick. He had already killed this person. Did they truly expect him to fall for such a cheap illusion? Then the scenery shifted. A gentle voice reached him, filled with admiration. A woman, her presence soft yet compelling, praised his power. The world around him transformed, bathed in golden hues of serenity, with figures welcoming him into their embrace. But he knew better. This was not real. It was a test, one he would not fail. The illusion tried to ensnare him once more. Soft whispers, affectionate touches, and a warmth that beckoned him to surrender. A loving embrace, a gentle voice calling him dear. For a brief moment, the sensation felt real, but he knew better. With a grunt, he clenched his fist, shaking off the illusion's grip. Before him, the ice-covered battlefield returned. The intricate illusion array had been carefully crafted, designed to tempt and deceive. But he scoffed. Did they truly think lustful fantasies could break him? He was no fool swayed by desires. As long as he couldn't experience the real sex, these illusions were meaningless. With a surge of energy, he shattered the illusionary world around him, ice fracturing in a brilliant explosion. Showing me women in fantasies all day is useless, he roared. As the shattered ice fragments fell around him, the illusion finally crumbled. He stood firm, his breath steady, his resolve unshaken. Then from the darkness ahead, a figure emerged. The atmosphere grew heavy, the air thick with an unknown presence. A slow, deliberate voice cut through the silence. This, a character beyond my expectations, has arrived. His eyes widened. He recognized that stance, that aura, unmistakable. You! He gritted his teeth, the realization striking him harder than any illusion. The red-haired warrior's eyes burned with fierce determination as golden lightning crackled around him. With a smirk, he raised his weapon, the energy surging through his body like a storm. Let's see if you can stop this too, he taunted, his voice laced with confidence. With a powerful swing, a devastating bolt of lightning shot down toward protagonist, the sheer force splitting the ground beneath it. The young man below instinctively braced himself, eyes widening in shock. The young warrior clenched his fists, blue energy crackling around him as he prepared to counter the devastating attack. This overwhelming aura, he thought, feeling the sheer pressure of his opponent's power. Golden lightning crashed toward him, shattering the ground and ice around him as he barely managed to evade. The sheer force sent him tumbling back, his mind racing. I don't need to ask to know. The truth was clear. His opponent wasn't just strong, he was a force beyond reason. As the dust settled, the warrior struggled to his feet, bruised but determined. That person is. The young warrior's eyes widened in disbelief. 300 years ago, he stopped the blood cult's invasion and saved the martial world. Before him stood a legend, the greatest master of the Gongsong sect, the #1 under heaven. The air crackled with tension as the man's crimson hair flowed like a raging inferno, his piercing gaze radiating an unfathomable presence. He is the celestial sword lord Mugukja. But there was no time to dwell on awe. A barrage of golden energy lashed out, shattering the ground. Dodging desperately, the warrior cried out, "Please listen. I am not an enemy." Protagonist, breathless and desperate, shouted, "Don't you recognize me yet?" His voice trembled, not from fear, but from frustration. The figure before him, the legendary celestial sword lord Mugukja, remained unmoved. Mugukja's piercing gaze bore down on him. Are you still intending to disrespect me?" His words were sharp, like the very sword he wielded. "Though your mind is of an absolute master, your martial arts fall short of even first class." The accusation struck deep. "And yet, with the power of rebellion plastered all over you, you claim innocence?" A dark, ominous aura swirled around Protagonist, a force beyond his control. Mugukja's voice thundered. "How will you prove to me that you are not a spy of the blood cult?" The battle was far from over, but could words alone change fate? Protagonist, battered and kneeling, struggled to catch his breath. His silence only fueled the tension. "Answer me at once!" Mugukja's voice thundered as golden energy surged toward the ground, shattering the earth beneath them. The warrior clenched his fists. He had no choice. With trembling resolve, he pressed his forehead to the ground. "Li Cholsu, the disciple of Gongdong sect, greeting my ancestor." His voice carried both reverence and desperation. Would this truth be enough to stop the storm? Mugukja's piercing gaze locked onto Li Cholsu, his sharp eyes narrowing as golden energy surged once more. With a thunderous impact, the ground cracked and shattered, sending a shockwave rippling through the battlefield. Mugukja launched attack on Protagonist. Dust and debris swirled, momentarily obscuring everything in chaos. But there was no impact on Protagonist. Then silence. A breath of relief escaped Chelsu's lips. Phew. Laughter erupted, loud and full of amusement. "Ha ha!" Mugukja's booming voice echoed across the wasteland. "You're quite a clever successor," he smirked. "To overcome your fear and utilize the method of Greater Yang at the last moment." His words hung in the air. Li Cholsu steadied himself, his breath still ragged from the intense battle. "This confirms you as one of our disciples." His voice carried both relief and determination. "Shall I end the test here?" Mugukja's eyes gleamed with curiosity. "I am the celestial sword lord Mugukja, the remaining consciousness of him from 300 years ago." His gaze sharpened. "This is a first for me to see, a disciple with both the reversal path and the path of immortality." Chelsu, unwavering, responded, "Is there a problem with that?" A pause. "Even if I've touched the reversal path, I am undoubtedly a disciple of Gongdong." His conviction was unshakable. Mugukja chuckled, his expression unreadable. "Well, I guess a problem." His eyes darkened. "Fighting fire with fire? Could this be heaven's will?" Protagonist contemplates using fire to fight fire, but questions its meaning. He recalls attempting an incarnation technique to regain his manhood, only to return to where he started. But moving forward, facing Celestial Sword Lord, he asks about his legacy that he left behind. Since he and his senior have already divided two techniques found in cave, he wonders, could the last remaining piece be martial arts? The Celestial Sword Lord paused, studying Chelsu's unexpected request. Further, instead of claiming the martial art for himself, Chelsu wished for his senior, Yujin Hui, to inherit it, choosing the future of the Gongdong sect over personal gain. He had given it much thought. The Gongdong sect and Yujin Hui. Now, the decision rested with the Celestial Sword Lord. Chelsu knew that mastering the Celestial Sword Lord's techniques would grant him immense power, almost absolute, yet he had no desire to lead. That role belonged to Yujin Hui, the one meant to rebuild the Gongdong sect. His ambition was different. He sought neither fame nor hardship, only a secure place as the ultimate second in command, content with mastering the sect's restored martial arts. The red-haired warrior scoffed at Chelsu's naivety, dismissing the idea of fate. He saw through the illusion. Chelsu had not come here by chance. A creeping unease gripped Chelsu as the Sword Lord's words sank in. Before he could respond, a chilling realization dawned. The true threat was yet to come. A bolt of crimson lightning split the sky, illuminating a blood-soaked battlefield. The reversal path's disaster was inevitable, and no amount of clever thinking could change that. Sword Lord explains. Chelsu's heart pounded. The disaster of the reversal path? What could it mean? Memories of the blood cult's invasion 300 years ago resurfaced. Weren't they destroyed by the great Mugukja? But as the celestial sword lord's gaze darkened, a terrifying thought crept in. Could they still exist? Chelsu's breath hitched. No way. Chelsu's blood ran cold. The blood cult will return. The monstrous figure loomed before him, its glowing red eyes filled with malice. The nightmare of history was not over. It was only beginning again. When pressed for answers, the celestial sword lord admitted he was bound by a higher power, unable to speak further. Frustration surged in the warrior as the weight of the unknown pressed down on him. Gritting his teeth, he could only curse, powerless against fate's cruel design. A surge of dread washed over him. What was this nightmare? The blood cult, a ruthless faction born from the fanatics of the heavenly demon sect, had once terrorized the land. Images of crimson-clad warriors with glowing eyes filled his mind, their allegiance bound to chaos and destruction. If they were returning, then a new era of bloodshed was inevitable. 3 centuries ago, the blood cult, led by the ruthless blood demon, plunged the Central Plains into chaos. Villages burned, rivers ran red, and the mountains of Guangdong became a graveyard. Even the mighty Yuan dynasty was forced to flee before their wrath. If they were truly returning, the world was on the brink of another dark era. Before the blood cult could seize the Central Plains, the celestial sword lord of the United Sword led the Murim Alliance into battle. On Lake Poyang, a legendary clash unfolded between him and the blood demon. The Murim Alliance emerged victorious, paving the way for the Ming Dynasty's rise, the place where Protagonist ruled in his previous life. As a reward, the Murim Alliance received the Non-Interference Covenant, granting them autonomy from imperial rule. The Protagonist realizes the situation is worse than expected. In the previous era, the blood cult remained dormant, but will that hold true now? Determined, he acknowledges he is no longer the same person he once was. If the worst happens, both the blood cult and the heavenly demon sect could strike together on Central Plains. He had hoped to leave the peace to Yu Jinwei's hands and step back, but that may no longer be an option. The Protagonist now faces not one but 2 major concerns, as war casts a shadow over the land. The turmoil of battle spreads anxiety and uncertainty, affecting everyone, regardless of gender. Protagonist thinks about consequences. If my wives who should be sharing love with me in peace grow weak body and mind due to war, who will take responsibility? Protagonist's imaginary wife confesses her distress. The thought of her lord dying in battle makes her unable to eat or drink, and in next second he seems to bow in front of her wife's grave. What sad picture to imagine. This kind of future is completely unacceptable for him, and his expression shows the same. Protagonist imagination flies high. He wants his paradise, free from worries, an utopia without worries and sorrow. He realizes his selection by a sword lord over Jinhui holds meaning. With newfound determination, he embraces the journey to strengthen himself. Protagonist stands resolute, his eyes burning with determination. He knows this opportunity is one he cannot afford to miss, yet, despite his resolve, doubts linger. Clenching his fist, he acknowledges that he isn't aiming to be a hero, not yet. A question gnaws at him. Why should he even care? But he remembers Empress, whom he treated as his sibling in previous life, and she must be still a child in this new timeline. His hesitation wavers as he considers the looming chaos. If powerful sects plunge the world into turmoil, can he truly remain a bystander? Resolve hardens within him. He won't stand idly by. Observing his shift in demeanor, Sword Lord acknowledges his readiness. The challenge is set. Is he prepared to learn the unified sword? Sword Lord asks. With confidence, he dismisses the need for preparation, believing himself more than ready, but his arrogance is met with scorn. A fiery Sword Lord mocks him, questioning his intent. Is he truly worthy, or just another deceiver, wasting sacred techniques on indulgence? His certainty wavers for the first time. He stands firm, undeterred by the accusations. My intentions are pure, he declares. The harmony of yin and yang is nature's law, not indulgence. His gaze sharpens. I am not a demon, enslaved by desire. Even the celestial sword lord saw my resolve. I was not swayed by illusions. Doubt lingers in the air, but his conviction remains unshaken. With unwavering resolve, Protagonist speaks his truth. I simply wish to express my desires in a righteous way, he declares, extending his hand. Seeking enlightenment through the harmony of male and female, this is the ultimate path. His voice softens. For me, women are pure devotion, love, and desire. I want to make them as happy as possible. Yet his passion turns into defiance. How can this be the same as treating women as mere playthings like some vile sect? His determination burns brighter than ever. Sword Lord scoffs, shaking his head. What a strange philosophy you have, he mutters, eyes narrowing. What crime have these women, who would be entangled with you, committed? They would all suffer from jealousy and envy. But the young man stands firm. That will never happen. His gaze is unwavering. If I couldn't take responsibility, I wouldn't start in the first place. A tense silence. Then laughter, loud and unrestrained. The Sword Lord throws his head back, amusement glinting in his eyes. Well, fine, he smirks. I'll give you credit for your ambition. I didn't expect the one to face such opposition would be in their right mind. Sword Lord speaks with a serious tone. If you're going to learn my martial arts, you may need to discard the mental foundation you've built up so far. His gaze sharpens. Are you still willing? Protagonist doesn't hesitate. It's fine if I never use this lesser martial art again. His eyes burn with determination. In fact, I despise it. I would rather see it erased from existence if possible. The older warrior smirks. Quite a stern resolution. Good, then I will show you. With a powerful motion, he channels his energy, his body glowing with an intense aura. The ultimate art of our sect, the technique I will impart to you. Flames swirl around him as he declares, the celestial art of unified harmony. As the energy swirls around them, forming a cosmic vortex of light and water, the young man is lifted into the air alongside his new master. His eyes widen in astonishment at the overwhelming force surrounding him. The master's voice resonates with authority. This is the celestial art of unified harmony. It unfolds the profound essence of yin and yang within the great universe. With a smirk, he continues, if you reach the ultimate level of the dual harmony technique I created, you can comprehend the celestial art of unified harmony. The young man clenches his fists, realizing the immense journey ahead of him. In the depths of a tranquil cavern, the words of a profound legacy echo. Disciple of both the rebellious spirit of heaven and the immortal martial art, dedicate yourself to training in the dual harmony technique. But in next scene, we see Protagonist and Jin Wei fainted and lying in the cave. Protagonist awakens. He finds himself in the cave where it all began. His eyes widen as he spots Jin Wei lying nearby. Rushing over, he shakes his companion gently. Senior brother, wake up. Slowly, Jin Wei stirs, blinking as he recognizes the face before him. Junior? She mutters, her voice laced with confusion and relief. Jin Wei wakes in confusion, her last memories filled with chaos. What happened? I saw our master vanish, and the pavilion was burning. Why am I here? Protagonist explains, you were caught in an illusion left by the celestial sword. Beyond the illusion, I found the sword celestial. Really? Jin Wei exclaims, astonished. Before them stands an ancient pedestal, bathed in ethereal light. The dual harmony technique over there is part of the Sword Celestial Lord's legacy. The cave starts trembling, rock falling on ground. Realizing the urgency, they rush toward it. They have to take the dual harmony technique and escape, because the Sword Celestial Lord's power is gone now and this place will soon collapse. Protagonist snatches the ancient tome from the pedestal, securing the legacy of the Sword Celestial Lord. The ground beneath them quakes violently, massive chunks of stone collapsing into the abyss. Over there! Jin Wei shouts, spotting an escape path. Without hesitation, they dash toward the glowing exit, leaping over crumbling ground and dodging falling debris. Time is running out. The entire chamber is on the verge of collapse. As the disciples sprint toward their escape, Protagonist looks back. A figure of sword lord clad, radiating an ethereal glow appears. His piercing gaze locks onto them, exuding an overwhelming aura of power. And the next moment, Sword Lord's figure disappears with strong blue energy surrounded. With no time to hesitate, the duo pushes forward. Protagonist becomes speechless for a moment after what he experienced with Celestial Sword Lord. The two disciples burst out of the collapsing cave, their breaths ragged as they step into the warm embrace of sunlight. For a moment, they stand still, taking in the golden hues of the vast landscape before them. It feels like I haven't seen the sunlight in so long, Jin Wei remarks, still catching her breath. Indeed, phew, Protagonist responds, exhaustion evident in his voice. Behind them, the earth trembles, sealing the entrance to the secret cave for good. The secret cave has completely collapsed, and we can no longer enter, Jinhui states solemnly. Whatever knowledge and power they managed to obtain inside is now theirs alone, lost to the world forever. With the cave sealed and their mission complete, the two warriors take a moment to reflect. But at least we recovered the lost martial arts. I feel relieved, Jinhui says with a smile. Let's return to the main base, Junior, she suggests, eager to move forward. Protagonist nods. Yes, there's much to organize, he replies. But before that, he trails off, gazing into the distance. A memory of the village boy who asked them help tugs at him. Unfinished business, a place he must visit before returning. He murmurs to himself, there's somewhere I need to stop by. Young-sik is deep in thought when his mother calls out to him, snapping him back to reality. She scolds him for staring off into space, reminding him that his grandfather is already sick, and now he's acting strange too. Young-sik quickly defends himself, saying he wasn't just standing around, he had already packed everything. Grandfather, looking concerned, sighs and asks if they really have to leave their home. Due to their difficult situation and the loss of their cattle, their only source of income, they have no choice but to move elsewhere in search of a better life. As they prepare to leave, Young-sik clutches a small bundle and looks down, lost in thought. He hasn't visited Gongdong sect in weeks, and he wonders if the protagonist and Jinhui are still doing okay. Young-sik is overwhelmed with worry, tears welling in his eyes as he wonders if something terrible happened because of him. He feels guilty, struggling with his emotions. Suddenly, a knock on the door interrupts his thoughts. Someone is outside. Young-sik's mother, confused, turns to see two strangers approaching their home. Protagonist steps forward and introduces himself as Li Cholsu, the disciple of the Gongdong sect. Beside him stands his senior, Yu Jinhui. Their sudden arrival raises questions. Who are they, and why have they come? Yu Jinhui reveals that Young-sik had asked them to investigate who destroyed their cattle shed. Now, after solving the case, they have returned with answers. Young-sik's mother is shocked. She had no idea her son had taken such action. They were shocked. As the news sinks in, Young-sik, overwhelmed with emotions, drops his belongings and runs toward the warriors, joyfully calling out to them as his brothers. Protagonist scolds Young-sik for not giving them his address, saying it took them a long time to find him. They reveal that the culprit behind the destruction of the cattle shed was a serpent that had turned into a demon. Grateful for Young-sik's report, they explain that it helped prevent further damage. As a token of appreciation, they hand him a glowing core from the serpent's body, instructing him to brew it and give it to his sick grandfather. Protagonist explains that if the grandfather fully absorbs the core, his health will recover quickly. Young-sik, holding the glowing core, remains silent for a moment before breaking into a bright smile, overjoyed by the hope it brings. Young-sik's grandfather and mother gather, showing gratitude to the warriors for their help. A warm farewell follows as the heroes prepare to leave. Under the peaceful sky, Young-sik and his mother make final greetings, holding on to the precious gift that may change their family's fate, and they disappear, leaving the place. As the two warriors stand in silence, a thought crosses one of their minds. Jinhui reflects on their strength, wondering if they were just a bit stronger. Could they properly show their gratitude to those who truly care about the Gongdong sect? With a determined expression, one of them declares, "Let's head back to the main sect." With no time for distractions, they know that rebuilding the sect is their priority. Without hesitation, they leap into action, vanishing into the distance, driven by their goal. As they walk forward, deep in thought, Jinhui acknowledges their new reality. Yes, with the guidance of a boy and the serpent, we've gained a great opportunity. But as the memories of their past struggles resurface, so does the weight of their situation. A dark vision of destruction looms in their minds. But it also placed a great responsibility on us. A monstrous shadow lurks in the background, hinting at the dangers yet to come. The narration unfolds a revelation about the past life cycles. Yu Jinhui from the first cycle never managed to devise the fusion divine technique, and she never met the Swordmaster. The collapse of the Swordmaster's secret cave wasn't natural, since the secret cave collapsed. A connection is drawn between past and present cycles. Just like us, in a previous cycle, someone other than Yu Jinwei reached the end of the martial pill. A sinister figure looms in the shadows, glowing red eyes piercing through the darkness. What if that person was a descendant of the Blood Demon sect? A powerful scene emerges, showing destruction. If they destroyed the cave to eliminate the fusion divine technique and martial arts manual that dealt the final blow to the Blood Demon sect, a dangerous truth comes to light, hinting at a deeper conspiracy spanning multiple cycles. The story builds tension as an unseen force stirs in the background. A hidden enmity is moving. Protagonist looks ahead, aware of the looming threat. Now that I think about it, though we joyfully received the fortune, a realization dawns upon them. Their secretive actions may have serious consequences. How should we explain the unauthorized departure to Master? Their concerns are immediately justified as they return, only to be confronted. Is Chel-Su with you? Master screams. Caught off guard, their expressions shift to panic. Master! Their reckoning has arrived, leaving them frozen in place. The tension reaches a breaking point as the long-awaited reunion takes an unexpected turn. A calm yet hesitant question is asked, "How have you been?" But before any peaceful exchange can happen, an enraged voice erupts. "I have not been well, you rascals." The furious master grabs them, shaking them violently, his anger fueled by worry. Tears stream down their faces as they panic under his grip. "Do you know how hard I've been searching for you? Tell me truthfully what happened." As the dust settles and explanations are given, the master finally sits them down, scrutinizing their words. "Is everything you just said true?" Now their fate hinges on how believable their story is. The truth is finally revealed. "Yes, it's true, Master." They present a glowing pearl from the secret cave, along with several ancient books. The master examines them carefully, and if there's no doubt about it, all these secret books are genuine. Tears well up in his eyes as he realizes the significance of their discovery. "You truly acquired the arrangements left by the honored sword ancestor and carried out his will." He reflects on their fortune. "Our sect's ancestor must have blessed and guided you." However, his expression darkens as he places his hand firmly on the table. "But your unauthorized departure was a clear fault." Despite their mistake, the master acknowledges the significance of their discovery. However, there is also merit in retrieving our school's lost techniques. With a decisive motion, he continues, "Therefore, I will not pursue your wrongdoing further." His tone softens slightly. "Although I'm not holding you accountable, make sure both of you don't let this happen again." Relief washes over them as the weight of punishment lifts. In an emotional moment, they rush into an embrace, reunited at last. The master whispers warmly, "Welcome back, Chel-Su." The long-lost Bokma sword technique has finally returned, marking a historic moment for the school. "This concludes the creation of the secret manuals," the master declares. With excitement, another he adds, "To think the Bokma sword technique has returned, truly a blessing for our school." The luminous pearl, now in their possession, is recognized as another valuable asset. "The luminous pearl you brought will also be of great help. Now at least we won't need to worry about going hungry." Master relived. However, a moment of hesitation follows as protagonist speaks up. Master, I have something to say." He voices a concern. "Would it be better not to reveal the fusion divine technique and luminous pearl to the public for now?" The master contemplates the situation. If we sell the luminous pearl for funding, it will inevitably become known." Concerned about the potential consequences, he asks, "Are you saying we should wait for a while?" Protagonist nods. "Yes." As the scene shifts, a mysterious symbol is revealed. The Star of Rebellion. Whatever its nature may be, it's certain that it symbolizes the blood cult. A flashback follows, in the past when Sword Lord explained blood cult to protagonist. "The reincarnation technique I used in a previous life was a forbidden sorcery." The narration deepens the mystery, linking it to an ominous lineage, belonging to the descendants of the blood cult who barely made a living as undertakers. The protagonist reflects on the ominous past. The trace of rebellion that the Honwon Sword Emperor saw back then must have been a mark of that sorcery. The memory reveals the terrifying extent of the blood cult's influence. the blood cult was thoroughly eradicated on a national level. But a shocking truth emerges. So I never imagined there could be hidden forces. Even in his previous life, he was unaware of them. Realizing the threat they pose, he contemplates the danger ahead. So if they extend their reach with intent, we might just fall prey to them. Determined, he resolves to prepare for the inevitable. If we are to face them, we must quickly build our strength on our side as well. Protagonist speaks up. Master. The Master acknowledges the difficult road ahead. Our sect's reconstruction is only just beginning. Chil-Su voices his concerns about the Luminous Pearl. A treasure. Without the power to protect it, it may bring disaster. The Luminous Pearl is a precious mineral, and many will be after it. If it becomes known that there's a treasure in Gongdong sect, I believe it may bring trouble instead. His master acknowledges his reasoning. You're not entirely wrong, Chil-Su, but a more pressing threat looms. Lately, the Shadow Society, they have been rampant all over Gansu province. Jinwei asks in confusion. The Shadow Society, you say? In the past, it was merely a gathering of hooligans, but their power has surged. Recently, its influence has risen sharply. Chil-Su's concerns are validated. You're right, Chil-Su. It seems it's not yet time to dispose of the Luminous Pearl. His master warns against hasty decisions. We must be cautious not to act rashly. With their course set, they prepare to move. Good. Then let's head out now. A lock clicks open. The master calls for his disciples. Jinwei, Chil-Su, follow me. Jinwei, puzzled, asks, Master, where are you going? With a knowing smile, the master replies, I can't just ignore the meritorious deeds you've done. Let's go out for a meal. Their destination is revealed. To the Gongdong Inn. Chil-Su's eyes widen in excitement. The Gongdong Inn. A mischievous grin spreads across his face. Yes, it's about that time. Cherry blossoms flutter as a figure appears in his mind. The lone flower of the White Path Martial Forest. It's time to meet the most beautiful Soharin. As the journey continues, the group arrives at a quiet, desolate area. People seems to be lost in thought, sits alone, gazing at the ground, deep in contemplation. They walk along a worn-out path, their steps slow yet purposeful. Protagonist glances around, eyes scanning the surroundings with skepticism. He can't help but question, is there really a restaurant to dine out here? Seriously? The barren scenery does little to ease his doubts. The master, leading the way, catches on to Protagonist's hesitation. With a slight smirk, he asks, surprised at how shabby it is? Ah, no, it's not that, Protagonist stammers. But his confusion is evident. The master sighs, his expression turning somber as he explains, as our Gongdong sect has weakened, the business district of Huajing County has changed a lot from the past. He recalls a time when their sect was strong and respected, when merchants and travelers would flock to their grounds. But now, as they approach their destination, the contrast is stark. The once thriving area has faded, leaving behind only traces of its former glory. The street's atmosphere shifts, becoming notably rougher. A loud scuffle erupts in the distance, a group of ruffians harassing merchants. The scene is unsettling. Ever since the Hoktobang faction, Shadow Society took control of Huajing County, the master mutters. Jinwei's mind flashes back to his past life. Now that I think about it, even in the future, there were many who coveted Gansu province. His thoughts are interrupted as they reach their destination, the last surviving business tied to their sect. The signboard above the entrance stands tall, albeit a little faded. Jinwei's eyes widen. Gongdong Inn. Yes, even if everything else collapses, this place needs to remain intact. Turning to his master, he speaks with newfound conviction. Master, I believe that for the first dine-out with our sect members, there is no place as meaningful as Gongdong Inn. The master smiles slightly at his words. If that's the case, that's a relief. With that, he gestures toward the entrance. Well then, let's go inside. The doors creak open as they step into the last stronghold of their sect's legacy. Inside Gongdong Inn, the place is bustling despite the town's poor state. As soon as they enter, cheerful innkeeper So-won Guang warmly greets them, calling them hero and guiding them to a comfortable spot. As the delicious aroma of food fills the air, the group settles in. The innkeeper engages in friendly conversation, then curiously inquires about a new face. Master introduces him as Li Chol-Su, a newly admitted disciple of the Gongdong sect. So Dai-in, the owner of Gongdong Inn and a key figure in the sect's finances, also acknowledges Cholsu. Impressed by his spirit, he remarks that the fame of the Gongdong sect will soon spread across the martial world. Cholsu humbly thanks him, still adjusting to his newfound role in the sect. The protagonist is taken aback by the overly warm welcome, questioning whether his simple greeting warranted such an enthusiastic response. As he contemplates the situation, the scene shifts to a bustling gathering where the arrival of martial artists from the Gongdong sect is the talk of the town. A lively discussion unfolds, with onlookers noting the arrival of a new disciple who radiates energy and enthusiasm. The protagonist, observing the attention they are receiving, wonders if they have suddenly become famous martial artists. Amid the gathering, Innkeeper explains that those present are friends and supporters of the Gongdong sect's restoration, opposing the Shadow Society's influence. The protagonist, initially confused, learns that the Gongdong Inn serves as a meeting place for those dedicated to reviving the sect. As emotions run high, a significant moment occurs. A bag of money is presented with great respect. A devoted supporter steps forward, earnestly requesting that the funds be used for the sect's revival. The sincerity of the gesture underscores the deep commitment of those who believe in the Gongdong sect's cause. Mr. reassures those gathered, promising that soon 2 strong disciples, Jin Wei and Cholsu, will announce the revival of the Gongdong sect. The air is filled with trust and anticipation. However, amidst the conversation, a name sparks a sudden reaction: Seo Harin. Protagonist's eyes widen in shock as he hears that she will be arriving soon. A smirk forms on another's face as they wonder if the true purpose of the ceremony is finally unfolding. Petals drift in the air as thoughts linger on Seo Harin, daughter of the innkeeper, famed as the most beautiful flower of the White Path. In the previous timeline, it was Sword Saint Yu Jinwei and Seo Harin who led the restoration of the Gongdong sect. Yu Jinwei was the sword master of strength, while Seo Harin was the brilliant tactician, managing all affairs of the sect. With piercing heterochromatic eyes and an aura of mystery, she was called the Heavenly Master Priest. Her ruthless skills and icy demeanor earned her another name, the Cold Sword Princess. She was a warrior of deadly elegance, a thorny rose that none dared to cross. As memories of her formidable presence resurface, the realization strikes: Seo Harin was no ordinary woman. People even formed fan clubs for her. The beauty so charismatic that people were ready to die for her or in hands of her. The protagonist, brimming with confidence, anticipates meeting the most beautiful woman in the righteous faction, convinced of her legendary allure. As he eagerly unveils the awaited moment, his excitement turns into sheer disbelief. Standing before him is a small girl carrying a basket of fruit. Shocked, he struggles to reconcile his expectations with reality. She's just a little kid. His inner turmoil is evident as he realizes the consequences of relying on memories from his past life. He's currently years in the past. The so-called most beautiful flower of the White Path is none other than a child, Seo Harin, who is even younger than him. The weight of his mistake sinks in as he processes the time difference, leaving him in a mix of amusement and regret. In a world of martial arts and sect rivalries, a young man finds himself captivated by Seo Harin, a girl with an air of nobility and mystery. Instead of seeing her beauty, he senses something more, an aura that reminds him of the Emperor. As he tries to make an impression, Innkeeper introduces Seo Harin, emphasizing her importance. The young man is immediately struck by her charm, his mind racing. Determined to win her favor, he convinces himself that becoming like a brother to her would be the best strategy. With exaggerated enthusiasm, he declares himself as Li Cholsu, a newly admitted disciple of the Gongdong sect. However, Seo Harin's sharp gaze suggests she is not easily swayed. Meanwhile, a child suddenly dashes across the room, causing a commotion. She dashes the door, drawing gasps from onlookers. She scolds the sect members for failing to prevent such chaos. The scene leaves an air of tension, as if this is just the beginning of something much bigger. Frustration fills her voice as she clenches her fists, her icy blue eyes blazing with resentment. "I really hate it, the Gongdong sect, the martial world and all of it," she declares, her voice trembling, not with fear but with anger.